You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Hail cheaters! Welcome to the Always Cheating podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Josh, one of our very smart Patreon supporters on the Discord this weekend described FPL as the devil's playground. And that resonated with me because it can mean many things, the devil's playground. It can mean, you know, it's a area of temptation. It's an area of like exhilaration and also pain. And this season, you know, we're nearing the end. We have a massive game week in the doubles and 37 to get to, and there's a lot of meat on that bone. But I think if we could just already jump to the end of the season, this one will be remembered as truly a devil's playground. And
The
I feel
whole
like,
season?
here on the Always Cheating podcast, we've definitely been on the highway to it. But that's fine. We can always start again.
We can always start again. It's fine. I mean, last year you and I both had, you know, strong seasons. I mean, I've honestly had a nice run of strong seasons. You know, two top 10K finishes in the last 3 years. Like, you know, and so I think that is sort of I think I just got on. I think I may have talked about this like 2 weeks ago. And thanks, by the way, to Dave for being on the pod last Friday or last Sunday, whenever you guys recorded.
Yeah, thanks,
Sunday.
Dave.
Yeah, and Timbo as well for popping up on the Patreon pod. I was in Rome and Florence, which was just fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Highly recommend for anyone who hasn't been. My first time in both those places.
Your description of this trip, which will, maybe we'll take that offline with any listeners who want to get into it, immediately moved Rome and Florence near the top of my must visit list. Yeah, so it sounds like you had a great trip.
Yeah. I did. It was an excellent trip, and so I missed a lot of bad things happening to my fantasy team. So even better.
Did you catch any live Premier League in Rome?
I did. Yeah, the Saturday afternoon, I had one of those live experiences that reminded me why I like to watch matches. I actually think I need to be at the bar more often, or at some.
Don't we all?
You can't really watch. I'm trying to think of a non-bar space where you could watch the Premier League in New York. Like, where would I go? Like, I don't think like libraries are showing these matches at 10 a.m. in New York. No. But does
it require other people being there? It's not like take your iPad to the park. Solitude is what we're trying to avoid here.
I think it is the other people being there. That's the key part of it. So my wife and I found there are a handful of Irish pubs. I'm not sure if they're literally Irish. Right. Yeah, exactly. They're everywhere. And there were a handful of pubs that, as anyone who travels knows, it takes 10 seconds, right? You literally can just Google Premier League Rome or whatever, right? Go to map view and you've got 4 spots all within a mile of you. And so that's what we did. And a couple people actually had recommended some spots to us too. And we ended up going to one of those spots. But we went down to like an old basement but it ended up being, they had a bunch of TVs and they had the sound on. And so I watched Man United Burnley and realized, by the way, this is like 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, but Man United, but it doesn't matter. But the matches themselves don't matter. Yeah. Watched Man United Burnley and Newcastle play. And who did Newcastle play? Was it Forest? Doesn't matter. Again, this is back in 36. Now I have to look, Brandon, because I can't.
Yeah, I don't think it was Forest.
It was Burnley. Burnley.
Yeah. Right. Last time Forest played Newcastle, Chris Wood put on a clinic.
Yeah, it was Burnley because Burnley drew first blood And then Newcastle came back and shellacked them. So, but anyway, so I was at the bar, and then we were just in the mood to chat. It was kind of a smaller space, and so we heard an American voice, and we started talking. There was a Texan who works in Rome, and then there was an Englishman, West Ham supporter, who also worked in Rome, and they were just Roman. Roman workers just hanging out at this bar, and so we just had a great time getting. My wife and I were drinking. Our kid was reading a book, like literally, it was like just in the corner. It was, everyone was happy. It was all good. We were not neglecting our child, but they were fine.
Sure, but there it is. Live sport brings people together. I think
it was invigorating. It really was, exactly. And fantasy was like, Bruno didn't really do anything in that match, right? He ended up getting a couple bonus points, but the point was, I was just enjoying watching the games, and I think that sometimes when I'm having a less than ideal fantasy season, this will be my worst one by a long stretch. It's a good reminder that like you're not just. It's not. I didn't just like pick a sport at random, right? It's not like you and I just decided, oh, I want to do some like low stakes gambling on. I don't even really know, like just some sport that we don't. We both enjoy watching the Premier League. It's super fun. The fantasy game is something that enhances it, right, and makes it even more fun. And so, totally. And I think maybe I've gotten a little too worked up about fantasy this season, and so I'm trying to get away from that. We always want to keep things positive here on the Always Cheating podcast, Brandon. And so we've got a big game week 37 ahead of us, and you and I are now separated, I think, by 2 points going into tomorrow's match. I have now lost my defender for tomorrow's match, Harry Maguire, out for the rest of the season. So I have a fun problem to solve. It's always fun to have to solve a 4.2 million double game week defender dilemma right before the double. And so that's, maybe I shouldn't have had it to begin with. I don't know. So that's,
you keep talking. I'm going to plug in my laptop.
Yeah. So now I basically have 12 hours to wait and see if Bruno is going to start tomorrow. Because if he doesn't start, then I get Nicholas Jackson's points off the bench, and that'll be a real game changer for me. If he does start, then I just need him to score more than 16 points, and I'll be, perfectly happy.
Yeah, and I get João Pedro off of the bench if Bruno is a no-show, and that was part of my -8 going into game week 36, which I just felt it was a mixture of all sorts of fantasy elements of being terrified not having Haaland. Maybe I make a -8 to do that, but the point of not getting Haaland on my wild card was to be different. And I had Julian Alvarez, but I just had this sinking feeling that I would just be washed away to sea if I didn't have Haaland. So my -8 to get in Haaland, João Pedro, and Chalobah, I think, assuming like Rasmus Højlund gets 2 points against Crystal Palace, it will have netted me 45 points, that -8. So I'm feeling really good about that. However, going back to the whole Devil's Playground thing is that sounds really good. And if you look at my game week 36 team, I have gotten a return from every single player except for Kyle Walker. And I'm at 89 points with the -8. That's a net 81 with Bruno and Dalot still to play. But I am, because of that -8 and because all of my guys did really well. But here's the thing. Every single dude did well in the game this weekend. So I'm still on a red arrow going into the Palace United game. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a gray dot. I've not moved. And it really is remarkable to get that many returns and to have your captain return 42 points. It just shows like a lot of really engaged managers still playing out there. And also because everybody returns, the Saka owners, the Salah owners, the Arsenal defensive owners, I don't know how many of them are actually active, but that hurts when you're trying to go your own way and everyone returns.
It's a real something for every 1 week, isn't it? Like if you wild carded in a bunch of players, they all returned. If you held Saka and Salah, right? Maybe Captain Salah. Granted, it wouldn't have gone as well as Captain Haaland, obviously, but like you would have gotten at least a goal and assist from that match. And so, I think it's so there was. You're right. I mean, it was hard to have a really terrible game week. I've kind of figured out a way to do it, but it's not easy to do. And it's kind of the story of my season. But Brandon, I don't want to talk about me.
No,
okay?
Let's not dwell on that.
No, I've done enough of that already.
I've been around you long enough, Josh, to see the true, we go to the farmer's market and get our special Josh jam that we put on our toast. I would not be surprised if you got Nico Jackson off the bench and beat me on points tomorrow. So let's see. We'll
see. I am certainly redlining right now, and I need a dose of positivity to carry me through these final 2 weeks. I'm limping to the finish line right now, Brent. It's a full. It's more than a limp, honestly. I would say I'm like I don't really, I'm like a. I don't know where I want to go with this, Brandon. I want to make some. Yeah.
Who in your life would you like to see come out from the crowd to actually pick you up from the pavement and help carry you across that finish line? Who is that?
That's a great. I guess it's got to be you, because you probably want to do it least, and so that would make it the most.
It could
satisfying.
Be a famous person. Is there a famous person out there that you're like?
Ooh, there you go. Yeah. Do I want like who do I really want to meet? Like Paul Rudd.
I love this. Paul Rudd, come be a guest on Always Cheating.
Noted fantasy player, noted fantasy manager, Paul Rudd. I don't know. I'm going to stick with you, actually. You're my answer here.
Great.
So game week 36, almost in the books. We'll see what happens with Bruno and Man United tomorrow. Some people will still have a handful of Crystal Palace players as well. I mean,
head-to-head against somebody with Mateta, and Mateta's going to have to get like 4 returns to help this person. But and his form could happen. Yeah, there's 13 injured Man United defenders, so that does help things a little bit. And Chancer, our old buddy Dan, noted there's only 2 points between us. Says, is this the closest Josh Brandon death contest ever? I think so. I feel like there was a season, a couple of years ago. I remember I was having like a little bit of an off season, not to this level, but I was like in the 100K, and you were inside the top 100K, and I feel like I needed a really great game week 38 to come to nick you, in the end points. And I didn't do it, and I remember you were like, I remember you said something like, you're like, this season would be a failure to me if you came back and overtook me on points. So I remember, I can't remember what year that was, maybe 2019 or something like that. So there was one season too where we were doing our $50 cup head to head, and I beat you on head to heads to win the $50, but then you overtook me in overall points, and it felt very much like winning a bubble tournament or something like that.
Right.
I felt like the Lakers.
Yeah, exactly. There's exactly. Or the mid-season tournament or whatever they're doing.
Yeah,
now.
the in-season tournament, I think they call that in the NBA now.
Exactly.
But
it's a nice thing, but it doesn't really move the needle. Yeah.
What's interesting to me about us being so close in points is, I mean, naturally our teams can converge game week to game week because we're so close in thinking, because we do this podcast twice a week, but we have had pretty different teams for long stretches this season. I mean, even look at this week. I captained Haaland. You went for a Cole Palmer captaincy, and still we're this close. And I don't really know how to explain that. It feels like fate is having its say here.
Yeah, I was reminded too of the kind of YOLO captaincy and how much more fun they are in theory than they are in actual practice. This is why I think it's so hard if you have a certain kind of bent to make up a lot of ground down the stretch, right? Because you basically have to go against your own instincts, right? The instincts being, well, I suspect this player is going to score the most, right? I suspect this player is going to score. That's the player you want to captain. That's why Haaland was the most widely captained player this week. And you have to gamble sometimes, right? Like, even though I know this is the most likely situation, I have to gamble that Haaland has a terrible match, or he still wasn't fit enough to start, right? Something has to go wrong. He misses a pen. Like, who knows, right? I mean, certainly we've seen Haaland have off matches this season, and then hope that it doesn't pan out. But it's such a stressful way to play. It's the kind of thing that only happens when you put yourself in a position where you need to make up a lot of ground, right? And the captaincy is ultimately like a little bit of a kind of it's a little bit of a cheat, right? Like if you can make it work for you. Ultimately, I think it doesn't really. I don't know. It kind of does. I mean, the captaincy is obviously hugely important, but maybe the captaincy as a route to make up ground is a little overrated. You know,
the Haaland captaincy just happened to it was the move this week, but it just so happened to be the move on the most popular forward in the entire game. So there wasn't a huge amount of upside there. Looking at my team in particular, I feel like if it's not the captaincy, there should be risks elsewhere in your team. And I was taking I was taking a gamble. Wasn't a big gamble of going double Chelsea defense coming into this game week. And it paid off. I got a clean sheet from Chalobah and one from Petrovic. Of course, that I by the time that we got there, I needed that to happen because I didn't have any Arsenal defenders.
Right.
So
right.
The risks I'm trying to make are just me trying to keep up with the pack, which is really frustrating. You mentioned missing a pen there, though. And the most frustrating moment of the game week was the Isak missed pen because it would have been a Gordon assist. A lot of people have Gordon. A lot of people have Isak. How many people have the combo? And there were a lot of scorers in that match. Callum Wilson probably had did he have the 3 bonus? Anyway, I think it was actually Bruno Guimaraes. It doesn't matter. I do feel like
Isak finished with 0 bonus in that
match. We could have.
Isak and Salah, interestingly, both with goals, assists, and 0 bonus this week.
We could have gotten bonus for Gordon with 2 assists or Isak, assuming he gets his brace. But I had this feeling, Josh, watching the build up to that penalty, Isak was gonna miss, who's like the most clinical finisher in the Premier League this season. But there just wasn't something right about him the entire match. And I think there was something about Callum Wilson's presence that was throwing him off. There were a couple of plays where Wilson and Isak were coming into the same space, and Isak clearly just like ceded the territory. And was like, I don't know what's going on here. I can't deal. Who is this guy? I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And Wilson obviously has a lot to prove, and reasonably so. So God, I was just so not surprised when he missed that. It was truly frustrating.
Yeah, it was. Of course, then he scores minutes later. Was that on a Bruno assist? I can't remember now.
It was a Josh Murphy assist.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Murphy.
He's always going to pop up, Murphy, isn't he?
What a weird season for Newcastle. It's really I'm honestly like I'm just blown away they've been able to right the ship as much as they have,
Murphy,
right?
Actually,
what is their they now have, is it, of course I wanted to pull the table and there's a pop-up ad that popped up. Yeah, so they now have four wins in 5. I mean 12 points in their last 15. They're not quite going to make it back to a Champions League spot. Interestingly enough, I mean, the Villa Spurs race is going to be quite close, although I think Villa probably only need to win one more match, right? And then they'll have it.
I feel pretty confident that Villa clinched that 4th spot because Spurs do have to play Man City, and we've seen some classic Spurs City matches in the past, but at the way the Spurs team is going right now, they're gonna get squashed like a bug by that City team.
I think that leads us nicely into game week 37, which I think we can get into now. I actually, very quickly, I wanted to do a shout out a handful of new and upgraded patrons. Brian, we don't always talk about the Patreon upgrades, but there's nothing.
It's a great way to be.
It's great to get a new patron. It's great to have a patron who suddenly becomes like a producer level patron or jumps up. And so thank you to Alex Rosinski, Matt Ruth, and Andy Penn.
Yeah, and Alex, your pint glass is in the mail en route.
Excellent. Excellent. Good.
Which is one of the many perks you can get if you go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. At this point of the season, maybe you feel like all the advice has been dispensed, but if you feel like you've gotten anything out of the pod, we appreciate it as a way of just saying thanks. And as you say every week, Josh, we turn off the payments in June when we're off, so you can enjoy the benefits of the Discord and all that free of charge during the summer months.
And and Brennan, you work in the book industry. Some of the marketing that you do are for things that aren't even available yet, right? So if you're done with fantasy for the next couple of weeks or next couple of months, and then you come back in July, maybe that's when you want to come and join the pod, and that's fine too. And so you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to support the podcast. You get an extra podcast each week. That's true throughout the entire season. You also jump on the Discord. The Discord was very active today, I have to say, with all the I was in too much of a state of FPL self-disgust to really dive in there, Brandon. But I was lurking. Make no mistake about it. Josh Landon was lurking in those chats.
Yeah.
You just didn't know it. Okay. I needed like a heavy breathing emoji to or something like I'm here. Just don't talk to me. I'm here. Yeah.
Hey, before we move on, I did want to say a quick thanks and shout out to the Form is Temporary podcast. Our friend Roberto Hollis invited me onto the Form is Temporary. It was interesting. He invited me, and he made a big show of not having you on the podcast. But
it was a real clear snub.
I had a really great time recording that pod with Roberto and Ollie, and there was a fun quiz that we did where I ended up, I won't spoil the results, but it was a tense time. So Form is Temporary podcast, really good show. Check it out.
Cool. All right, Brian. Well, let's get into thanks to Roberta for having you on there. Game week 37, Brandon, kicks off on. Well, let me make sure, because this Friday one snuck up on some people this week, didn't it, Brandon?
It did, yeah.
It did.
I mean, especially it was a Friday one, and it was kind of was it a 2:30 kickoff?
Early, and then of course they have this 90-minute deadline now too, so it makes things even.
It's tricky out there, guys. Yeah. It was a 3 p.m. kickoff, but still, people get confused.
Yeah, wouldn't be me, but I know there are people out there, Brandon.
Could happen to people you know.
I've had some real moments this season with. I don't know. It's am I getting old? I don't really know, or am I just distracted this year? I think we haven't talked about too much. I've got some personal stuff going on. Everything's good, all good. In fact, it's very good, Brandon. It's too good. In fact, I need my personal life to get less good, and then I can focus more on. It was
so helpful when FPL was the only joy in your life.
Exactly.
That's when the times were at the best.
I need to, like Emerson said, right? I need to simplify and get back to what really matters. Yeah. So Game Week does kick off, though, on Saturday morning, May 11th, just a couple days before you make your return to New York. You'll be here for a week.
Absolutely. I'm coming back. New York, the Big Apple, a journey home. It's very Homeric, right?
It's coming home, folks.
Absolutely.
It being Brandon in this case. Yeah. So you'll actually have some double game week stuff here. I think you'll be unfortunately working most of this time, but it kicks off Saturday morning full. Wow. This is a hearty slate of 10 a.m.s, Brandon. This is a real put the kids to bed early. In my case, the 10 a.m. that'd be very early. Maybe just don't wake the kids up would be a better description.
I was looking at the fixture slate. I was like, God, is this the championship Sunday fixture slate?
And me too. I know. Yeah, exactly.
The same day.
Yeah. Let me. I'll share it here for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, because it's. And by the way, this podcast is now available on YouTube.
See our screens. Yeah, and I think 8 teams play on Saturday, and then the non-double fixtures are then one on Sunday and the final on Monday, and then we get into the double game week fixtures.
We need to have a scheduler on, by the way, to explain the absolute chaos of the Premier League scheduling. Why are there 8 matches on Saturday and then 1 on Sunday? Can you explain that to me? I need your help on this one.
Now, if you go to Stockley Park and you look at the robot in charge of Goal Rush, like steam is going to be shooting out of this robot's head as this Goal Rush with kind of 6 fixtures happening at once is happening.
It's wild. The most important one from a table standpoint is the Spurs. Well, honestly, there are 2, because Man United hosting Arsenal. I think before Man United lost every single defender in their team, I would have felt better about their chances there. But it should still be a tough match. Yeah. But Spurs Man City, I think, is really the big one. And as we talked about this briefly at the start of the pod, but and again, we're not really talking about fantasy quite yet, but just Spurs have given Man City trouble over the years at home. And so I would assume that would give them a little extra burst of confidence. I don't know how much they want to play spoiler, for Arsenal, but I don't think that is going to enter into their thinking. I mean, the idea that Son would not want to beat Man City because it would help Arsenal, I think, is just absurd. And I think that's going to be a tough match. They're going to give it everything they got, right? And so
they certainly will. Though I think Arsenal fans and other watchers have been pointing at the Fulham fixture, the Craven Cottage fixture for City,
right,
as the possible banana skin. Fulham are strong at the Cottage. Fulham are, though, at the point of the season where it's, where is the motivation? Do they have it in them? The appealing thing about Fulham as a club, Josh, Fulham prides itself as being a nice, happy-go-lucky sort of a fan base, and hey, we're happy to participate. So
you're just happy to be there. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I mean, viewed through that lens, maybe it's a 9-0 Man City win, Brendan. I don't know, but I mean, Fulham have a couple of big kind of notches on their win belts, right, this season. Yes. I mean, they beat Spurs very handily a couple of weeks ago. Maybe, in fact, I guess it was back in game week 29. But that really started, I feel like, Spurs' big kind of decline in form. So
the worry for Fulham is that Tosin Adebayo is leaving the club, basically. So the center back partnership was Tosin and Calvin Bassey, and that is really what took hold and created this sort of like center of power in the defense. And Tosin has kind of just been cast off as like, all right, you're out in the summer. We're going to give minutes to Issa Diop. Issa Diop can have real clunkers of games. He happened to play well enough against Brentford this weekend, so maybe Bassey Diop will work. But that's just something I'm thinking about as I'm looking at potential captaincy and City's odds at the Cottage.
I do like Diop, though. I mean, sure. But
he's got good games in him. When he's good, he looks very solid. Yeah. But he's always got those mistakes in him.
Yeah. What would have helped is if Man City were still in Europe, I could see this being even trickier, right? But I think, as is no second leg of the Champions League. They really are rolling right now. I mean, it's wild to me, honestly, that Pep hasn't won more Champions Leagues, because the way that Man City, in terms of the Premier League table, have finished basically every year, but I guess his first year they didn't win the title, and then they didn't win it once with the year Liverpool won, but otherwise he's won every time.
So I've got this theory that I'm like sort of working on as to why Pep hasn't won those Champions League, particularly if you look at the semifinals this year with Bayern Munich and Real Madrid specifically. Bayern Munich has not played great domestically. Obviously, Leverkusen has just run away with it in this like record-breaking season. Yeah. But you look at that Real Madrid matchup against City, and it is like Pep's robots playing in a very specific sort of way versus a team in Real Madrid who feels probably a little more empowered to be free. And that doesn't always net you the most predictable results, but it feels like in the Champions League, the teams that are just not necessarily flair, but talent and freedom seems to often win out in the Champions League. So I think it's going to be why Pep might struggle there.
It's going to be so weird, by the way, if we end up with the Borussia Dortmund Bayern Munich final. That is truly the most unlikely of, like, Borussia Dortmund are like fourth in the Bundesliga table. It's just so, it'd be so
it would be a fitting tribute to Klopp, because I think Klopp took that Dortmund team to the final against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. That's then lost.
You think they're doing it for Jurgen?
Absolutely. Do it for Jurgen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun story. They'd be a fun team to root for in the Champions League final. I guess maybe Real Madrid would be a little more fun, but they're both. I don't know. Do you want another Bayern? What I don't want to see is another Bayern beats Dortmund. I feel like I've seen that story.
You get a finish for two sides of the camp: the Kane haters and doubters versus the Kane lovers. Either Kane gets to lift a major trophy and get that monkey off his back, or the haters and doubters get yet another moment.
That is true. That is, okay. All right. There's some good narrative there then. Well, now we're going to end up with PSG Real, but let's see what happens.
We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Basketball playoff season is here, and it's the perfect time to join the PrizePicks community of over 5 million members who have already downloaded the app. They have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the playoff basketball board, and I like Kevin Durant for more than 28 points and James Harden for more than 9 assists. Check it out. Download the app today. Use the code BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a $100 first deposit match when you download the app and use the code BLUEWIRE. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Basketball playoff season is here, and it's the perfect time to join the PrizePicks community of over 5 million members who have already downloaded the app. They have quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types, and that's what makes PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the playoff basketball board, and I like Kevin Durant for more than 28 points and James Harden for more than 9 assists. Check it out. Download the app today. Use the code BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a $100 first deposit match when you download the app and use the code BLUEWIRE. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. In hundreds of locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/bluewire to learn more and find a center near you. That's unifydhealing.com/bluewire. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE System.
All right, well, back to Game Week 37. Who plays twice in Game Week 37, Brendan? It's Brighton. Okay, sure. Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, Newcastle, and Spurs. So for both Chelsea and Spurs, it's the second time they played twice in the last 3 weeks. So very, a lot of matches, though Chelsea have figured something out, interestingly. Like, I don't know what, if Poch is sort of starting to put the pieces together a little bit, but I mean, I'd say the last couple of weeks are probably the most, maybe just the last week. I don't really, it's like probably the most encouraged you can feel as a Chelsea supporter.
Was it Enzo Fernandez the whole time? Like, since he's been out of the squad, it seems to kind of coincide with this Resurgence like taking one of those midfielders out, and it's worked.
Yeah, even Conor Gallagher probably had some amazing moments, and there was a lot of talk about whether he was even kind of good enough to be in that squad. And Nicholas Jackson clearly doing better. I don't, it's like, say what you will about him, but he's, had some nice moments.
You see this with Newcastle too. Newcastle kind of driving up the table, and they're getting a lot of players back from injuries. It's great to see Joelinton back on the pitch for them.
Yeah.
And Chelsea getting players back fit in Cuckoo. And it's almost like for Chelsea, it's not going to impact how the season ends for them. But you can, with their form and the players coming back, suddenly it's easier to talk about Chelsea in a positive light for next season.
Right.
All right, Chelsea are not going to be pushovers next season.
Yeah, I think that's true. Newcastle too. Joelinton back, as you noted, like that's a huge one. And so who would have thought 5 years ago, Brendan, that he'd be so incredibly important? But it's
the
true.
Cornerstone, right?
Yeah, but it's quite like obviously true, evidently true.
Yes.
All right, so who actually has the best and worst fixtures in game week 37? Right, we talked about the teams that doubled, but who has the kind of better fixtures here? I think we could drop a couple immediately, like Brighton. Terrible form. Actually, they won today. So I don't really know. I mean, Brighton, how do they win that match? I have no idea. But credit to De Zerbi, I guess. I sort of felt like it felt like that train was out of coal.
Credit to Adingra, who was just a man on fire that entire match.
He's been your guy. I often jokingly call people your boy, but he's the closest one to an actual Brandon's boy on that team.
I think he played well, and Watkins seemed a little off that match, and they had an excruciating tie against Olympiacos on Thursday night. Granted, it was home, but 4-2 loss. It seemed like it might have zapped their energy. But Brighton still, of the doublers, seem like they have the weakest sort of like points opportunity of the bunch.
I think so. And just moving through the teams that double here. I mean, obviously you have some single game week teams as well that we can talk about in a second. Maybe Arsenal away to Man United most notably. Chelsea away to Forest, away to Brighton. Not bad. I feel like. I mean, Forest are I don't know. They sort of I guess it's kind of a tricky time to play them. They did. Did they ultimately secure safety with that win? I don't know. They got pretty close, I'd say.
Luton could do it, but they just haven't been able to win any games in
a while. If the final shot had gone in on Friday, the last shot of the match, if they had gone that and 1-2-1, maybe the story is different. Yeah, but I agree. I mean, it was 3 points to 1 this weekend.
I don't necessarily want to count Luton out because it'd be fun for them to make a go of it. Nor do I want to say Forest will think they're safe. So that makes it tricky for Chelsea in that fixture. It's sort of like Chelsea feel like they have the best fixtures if you take home and away out of it, but they are both away, and Chelsea seem to rely on playing at the Bridge to get these really standout, emphatic wins and results. So, and then, if you look at the teams that have strong home fixtures, you've got Manchester United, who have had 2 home fixtures in the double, but they are against Arsenal and a pretty informed Newcastle. So this is
only Man City, I feel like would be a worse team to play than those two at the moment. So tough fixture. Though, well, honestly, I would expect them to score in both of those matches. I think even the Arsenal match, I feel like they can at least get one pass. I suppose it depends on the Bruno situation because if he's injured or if this is one of those like he wants to go this summer. It's kind of like you were saying about the Adebayo. Adebayo, is that
just call him Tosin and you'll be fine.
Okay, Tosin, yeah. with Tosin, where maybe if he really is gone, of course they wouldn't say this out loud, right? But if he really is gone, then maybe they want to try Mount in a more in a kind of Bruno-ish role, whatever, right? Now. Yeah, it's Mason Mount's team now. I don't know, or it really is just a small injury. I mean, who knows, right? So, but I would certainly fancy Bruno's chances with 2 home matches. And I think Newcastle are in a fine spot as well, given their form. Home to Brighton, away to Man United. I see them scoring multiple goals in both of those matches. Spurs are in a tricky spot. Again, they can score. This is just the story of the season, by the way, is I don't like any of the defenses in any of these any of these matches. Right. But Burnley home is a terrific fixture, right? So that one fixture alone makes them a very interesting double game week team. I'm already tripled up on them, so there's kind of nothing I can do there. Not
the Spurs defense. You're doubled on them, right?
No, I doubled on the Spurs defense. What a wonderful decision that was. And Vicario. That's they might have Vicario. His name might as well be like Pyrrhic Victory, or it's like he has all these matches where he plays great and has a bunch of saves, and that means nothing because they still concede 4. And so I hate having to defend. I think next year I'm just going to spend no money on defense and just put all of it up front. Is there any? I mean, you can still get these like Kvaratskhelia guys at $5 million, right? Like, why am I spending more than $5 million on anybody?
Even still with Guardiola, he did bupkis for like 3/4 of the season,
20 game weeks. Yeah, exactly. So I think the defense has really tripped me up a lot this season. And then you have Man City, who they have 2-way matches, but they're Man City, right? So from a kind of pure fixture standpoint, I don't love Fulham away or Spurs away as a double, right? Like I don't think either of those are awesome matches where I would feel super confident in their attacking players. It's certainly if you only had 2 Man City players, I'd recommend getting a third, right? I mean, there's a kind of like baseline of just like they're an excellent team. They're going to probably win both these matches. They're going to score a couple goals and most likely keep a clean sheet in at least one of the 2, right? So there's still a lot of like value in them, but I don't see the massive upside there that I might see with like Newcastle, for example, right? I think if you really, this kind of brings me to before we get into the captaincy stuff, what do you think about Arsenal? Like if you were a manager who had Saka or had Gabriel or something like that, like would you be trying to get off of your Arsenal players this week, or do you? No. I have a bench boost and I've got Gabriel, and so I think I'm in a slightly interesting spot there where I could turn him into another player for another double game week player for 37.
I would take Arsenal in 2 fixtures as well. They don't have a double in 37, but they finish the season in a match that they will need to win, home against Everton.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what to make of that match because Everton have been playing well, but I will be moving at least one of my double game week assets to get an Arsenal player in 38 for that Everton match for sure. So if you have Arsenal players, I can't imagine moving any of them. And because we kind of like don't know precisely what to think about any team this season. And there's only one aspect of one team that seems to be a relative certainty, and that's the defense for Arsenal. So if you have Arsenal defense, even though if you assume Manchester United are good for a goal in that match, I wouldn't move them at all. I'm not sure I would bench them if I was not bench boosting this week. I think I'd still look to start an Arsenal defender unless I had a doubler to start in their place, just because this is the only certainty of this season, right?
Right. Yes, I agree. Like if I had, I don't know, like let's say you had Branthwaite, who has Sheffield United at home. Like, would you start him over?
Okay. Branthwaite versus Gabriel. I see. King
Branthwaite.
You're in coin toss territory. You're in coin toss territory there. Yeah. I take your larger point, which is that it's probably fine. And I'm bench boosting this week, as are you. At the moment, my plan is to hold Gabriel because I also think there's a reasonable chance that he can keep a clean sheet or just score.
right? Just get
crazy goal that he scored over the weekend that was ruled off for a marginal offside or foul. I can't quite remember, but
how many goals has he scored this season that were chalked off for fouls or offsides? Yeah. It feels like it feels like he get about 10 on the season. So that brings me to the captaincy question. And I thought we could maybe think about the captaincy 3 ways, right? It was 2 game weeks left of the season. So if you're being conservative, if you're chasing, and if you're going full, you only live once, full crazy, full maverick, as we used to say. So if you're being conservative, Brandon, who is the sensible, simple, best captain pick for 37?
Erling Haaland.
Okay.
Right.
I agree. He'll start both these matches. He just scored 4 goals. He's Erling Haaland.
What's pretty simple.
Yeah. What about if you're chasing? And you can say Haaland again if you want. Like, I think if you feel like it's just not worth it to go against him, then that's okay.
I wonder if there is something to. I kind of want to say Anthony Gordon in this sicko sort of a way, because he is Mr. St. James Park, and they have Brighton, which their defense is very strange. I'll put it that way.
I mean, I was going to say Isak, so I think
Newcastle feel like they are resurgent, and I like them just for that one fixture. And as you've noted with the Maguire, we're at the dregs of the Manchester United defense. It's not like at Old Trafford, Newcastle are going to be going up against some stalwarts there.
Yeah, let me pull up the Man United squad here. Let's see how many. Yeah, I mean, you've got, if you include Bruno and Rashford being flagged too, it's Maguire, Lindelof, Varane, Shaw. I thought there might be like a chance that Shaw maybe comes back right at the end. It wouldn't really be relevant for this match. I guess, I don't know. He has played as a center back at times. Not well, I felt like, but he's done it. So even your boy Gore is out, Brandon. That's tough. And your boy Kamala, a lot of your boys are injured right now on this Man United team. Your boy Hannibal too, man. It's a trio of Brandon's boys all knocked out.
Get well soon, Hannibal. I'm sure you've gotten my card. Next time I see Hannibal live, I'm going to have the sign that says Hannibal, your jersey, please, after the match.
A great TV show just turned into a great asset, Brandon. For
for sure. What about we kind of glossed over other City options. So you got De Bruyne was picking up some fantasy steam heading into game week 36. Yeah, with him blanking it always feels like a really great fantasy asset blanking, even though they've been in great form, is harder to swallow when somebody else on their team hauls massively like Haaland did. And then
even Foden got an assist.
The cheaper version of De Bruyne and Foden, if you want to put it that way, even got a return. So you do still have the opportunity to captain De Bruyne or Foden. And I wonder if either of those guys might be just slightly more appealing than going rogue on a Newcastle pick.
Yeah, I mean, Foden especially. Foden has had some massive hauls this season, right? Like hat tricks and more. So I think that, I think that you're right. I think Foden is a great pick. I think Isak is a strong pick. I mean, I think that you could certainly make an argument for Son as well, right? Just because because that Burnley fixture is fantastic, right? And he's also scored a number of goals on Man City, and he scored in the last 2 matches too. I mean, it's like, because we've been so frustrated by, I guess actually it was 2 of the last 3, right? I don't think he didn't score in the Chelsea match, but I think because Spurs have looked so frustrating, maybe we've overlooked Son. I mean, actually, I think he was the one who played through that pass too. The one that, remember at the end of the match, was it Richarlison? It was.
Or was it? Okay.
It was like Richarlison, and then it bounced off the. I thought Son played in Richarlison.
It didn't matter because it was offside anyway.
Offside. Yeah, delayed flag.
Yeah, there was something about Son in that match that didn't look quite right. The ball was kind of loose at his feet. I'm not feeling super
Really
high.
stick into his boot.
Yeah, it wasn't really. He missed the stickum. He needed some pine tar or something like that on his boots.
Some pine tar.
I mean, what about Cole Palmer? So,
Sure.
Palmer's superpower is Stamford Bridge, but and these are 2 away fixtures.
I thought his superpower was setting up his teammates for chances that they can't convert. That was
that's also that.
That's an incredible superpower.
But he remains like silky smooth. He looks great. He's central to everything. Yeah. He's my vice captain right now on my bus team. So I think I have time for that as a captaincy shout.
Yeah, I like the Palmer shout for sure. I think for me, I'm probably leaning towards Isak personally, just because given where I am, I just see no upside in captaining Haaland, even with the bench boost. I mean, who cares? Like, I just there's no way that to salvage this season. So let me at least but I also don't want to be
swinging.
Yeah, but I also don't want to go crazy, right? Like I basically want to captain who I think is going to be the second best asset this week, right? I'm going to basically do the gamble that I did this week again, and maybe it works out. But that's why it's called a gamble, Brandon. If it was not a gamble, it would just be a percentage play. It would just be the smart move, right? And so you have to have your eyes wide open, just like the song, So I'm quoting.
We should get Creed on the pod.
My references are incredible tonight. I'm really I'm feeling it. So let's say these are the kind of the good, like the reasonable picks. Then we've listed off the kind of solid non-Haaland options. Yeah. Is there someone who stands out as a true no one's going to go for him? Like, let's say Bruno is healthy. Like, is he feels like he's like 10th on this list, but maybe he's like a YOLO kind of pick.
Yeah, I think that's right. There is something about like a pen taker that fits into that category for me, because even if you have question marks about how compelling the fixture is for that particular player, anything can happen from the penalty spot. And that really just, I think, does augur for Bruno. And we went through this with Shane Duffy years ago, but I feel like this does happen once a season where there is a random goalkeeper or defender. Look at Branthwaite in the game week 34 with the 20 points. Is there a defender anywhere in this doubler mix? I mean, Ederson and goal, Guardiola, perhaps. I mean, I guess I'm just naming Man City defenders. I'm not going to say.
Where else would you go, though, right? I mean, it's like it's not Dallo.
Dan Burn.
Right? There's Dan Burn. Yeah, maybe if Schär were healthy, that would be that'd be something. So, all right, well, let's move on to a few questions here. Shiv had a question about free hit team, but I think we should. I had that at the top, but I actually think it'd be more helpful to look at a couple of the other questions first. So, the question from Kendall, Brandon, who says, or Kendall, I don't know, maybe it's Kendall, says, Schär, Maguire are the popular picks, or are 2 popular picks for double game week 37, now both gone for the season. Who are the best replacements on a bench boost? Now, I think Schär is fairly simple, right? I think if you have a third Man City spot, you go Guardiola, right? And and that kind of solves that problem. If you wanted to be a little different, maybe you could go for a Newcastle defender, right? That might be something to consider.
Here's what I'll say. I think Malo Gusto. So one of the reasons why I moved Schär to Chalobah was you look at the state of that Newcastle defense, and it's Dan Burn having to be moved to center back to play next to Emil Kraft, who's not played a lot of football. They have second and third choice fullbacks and Lewis Hall and Livramento, who's played very well when he's been on the pitch. So, I feel like the Newcastle defense suddenly feels riskier to me. And Malo Gusto, who's back and looked decent when he came on for Chalobah against West Ham, he's proved he's got attacking output. And I think these Chelsea fixtures are pretty interesting for him.
I don't mind it. It still worries me a little bit just because just because he has missed 3 matches, almost 4 matches, right? Just the 7 minutes in the last match. So, the price is certainly right too. So at least Maguire to Gusto is like a move that most people can make, right? Because it's only 0.1 million more.
There's no Chelsea defender who you can like totally trust at this point because Pochettino's been rotating and Thiago Silva has had a little bit of a niggle and doesn't play all the time. And then his partnerships have been rotated as well. Is Chalobah center back? Is Chalobah fullback? Yeah. So it's very confusing. So I take your point on Gusto. It's almost like, how do you even buy a Chelsea defender at this point? Even though I do think that they're like, if you could get one that you knew was going to get 2 starts, I'd be interested in that.
I certainly wasn't expecting back-to-back clean sheets from them. I'm not sure many, even the people who brought in Chelsea defenders, I'm not sure they were.
They had no right to keep a clean sheet against West Ham too. Like Jared Bowen hit the post 3 times.
Was it 3 times?
It was 3 times. Yeah.
I think it's a little, if you want to move past Chelsea, I mean, you could look at, Brighton have defenders that are affordable, right? You could get Joel Veltman for 4.3. They have had this wacky ability to keep clean sheets in matches where you don't expect them to, right? Clean sheet away to Brentford in 31, clean sheet away to, home, clean sheet home to Villa in 36, home to Forest in 28. So I'm just looking through some recent results. So it's not impossible. Like we have this idea that it's like they just never, ever keep clean sheets, but they can at least bang them out. The only problem is you don't really have that kind of attacking player that you can trust, right? Estupiñán's out for the season, right? And there's sort of no, everyone feels pretty risky, right? Like Joel Veltman, we kind of know what he is at this point, right? This is, I think, his 3rd year in the league. 4th year, actually.
I think Webster started today too, but Lewis Dunk is the one who will play both matches, and that's Lewis Dunk is just fingers crossed. Maybe he'll get something on a
he'll get a goal. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that's the kind of territory, and he's at 5.2 million. I think he's too expensive to really consider for.
Imagine me on my wild card, Josh, where I have Lewis Dunk, and I had 4, maybe 5 defenders at one point. I ended up with at least 4 who were priced higher than 5 million. In a season in which defense has been awful. Make of that what you will.
I think that, you had your move this year. I've had some personal life stuff. This is not, but darn it, Brandon, we're putting out these pods like a couple of marathon runners.
I'm going to have a great bench boost, Josh.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to have the best bench boost of my life. Gosh darn it. We're going to make applesauce from these apples, from these rotten apples, Brandon. We're gonna mix it with some sugar, make ourselves some applesauce, eat that applesauce all off season. With some cinnamon on top. Exactly. We're going to, you know what we should do? We should get into. I'm trying to think of like some kind of canning metaphor here, Brandon. We need to basically we need to I'm going to mix my metaphors here a little bit. We need to plant the seeds, right? Okay. We need to start the canning, right? So that by the time, put it in our pantry. So by the time the season starts, the next season starts in August, you and I have created, right? We've seeded ourselves. We're ready for next season. So that this positive attitude that we have right now, that is the seed, right? That goes inside of our pickle jar or whatever.
Yeah, that was a terribly mixed metaphor, but I know exactly what you mean. Any good things that we can pick out, let's put them in a little bag.
I was trying. I was thinking. I like the idea of planting a seed, but then I was thinking that seed that's not going to get where I need it to be by August, right? You can't plant a seed in May, Brandon, and have that seed sprout in 3 months.
I think what you're trying to say,
nature works.
We're like doomsday prepping for fantasy, I think is what you mean to say.
Yeah. So, whatever. Like, there's 2 weeks left. I'm still going to watch the match. I'm still setting my team. I'm still thinking about the moves I want to make, right? So nothing really changes other than we're not going to be, winning any of our little money leagues or anything like that, right? Other than that, it's all kind of same as it ever was, right? So, you got to keep your head up and finish the season with a little bit of pride.
Well, tell me what moves. I'm curious. There's a lot. We have a long week in front of us, but you've got a few problems that you want to address. Plus, you have 2 frees to work with. You thinking of taking a hit to remake portions of your team? And Maguire's got to go. Obviously, that's first out.
Yeah, I mean, so my free hit squad, I mean, my free hit, my bench boost squad at the moment. My bench boost is active. I went ahead and actually did that before I, forgot. And so I have, I mean, the situation with Bruno, I've got to keep an eye on, right? But yes, Maguire out for maybe Malo Gusto, Disasi out for Gavardiol would be the kind of two obvious moves. And I think I have just enough money to do that. And then I guess that would be the squad. Those are such boring moves. Like, the Maguire injury is such a low-key annoyance. But this is the season of the injury, right? So that kind of is where we are. If Bruno's injured, then we're probably into taking a hit territory. Right, that probably opens up the door for something like that. I mean, Disasi, I don't really know what to do there, right? I mean, I guess I could keep him, but it's like somehow he's, despite being a starter all season, now he's lost his spot, and I don't really know. Maybe he starts one of these two.
He's not very good, I think, is his problem.
He played for 25. He started for 25 weeks. Like, I don't really. I mean, it's crazy to me that I brought him in because I thought he was the safer of the Chelsea defensive picks. Like, I thought I was being sensible, and instead it's completely blown up. So I don't really know. I think and it settled me with Vicario too, who's having any defenders from Spurs, what an exercise in misery that's been. So so I think I don't know. So I'll move Maguire, and maybe if I'm feeling really saucy, I'll turn Gabriel into Gvardiol instead and take my chances with Disasi. The front picks itself, right? I mean, Areola, the reason I got him was just because he plays Luton at home, and I thought maybe they could keep a clean sheet there. I mean, obviously, they looked absolutely disgraceful today at West Ham. Like, their supporters, like, I'd be lucky if anybody shows up for that match next weekend.
An empty stadium, COVID style.
And then I saw our friend Tom Campbell was joking about them because Moyes was like still complaining about not having Declan Rice after today's match, and Tom was like, "It's May 5th. Like, it's like you had." First of all, they sold him this summer, right? And also
they brought in Alvarez, who's been decent enough. I mean,
decent.
Declan Rice is, he's in the discussion for generational midfield talent,
sure.
At least as far as Englishmen go.
Sure, yeah.
So you don't just go buy another Declan Rice.
Yeah, but it's also like they had the off season, they had the winter break. It's like now clearly you can't just find a Declan Rice out of the. But like you had a year to shore. I don't know. It was not a great look to be like, oh, I still can't figure this out.
He's in a situation where he might still be trying to vie for a contract extension with West Ham, and West Ham are probably like, buddy, it's not happening. There's some interesting discussion, I think, on the commentary today where they're like, they better announce that West Ham better announce that Moyes is leaving in the summer before the next match because he deserves a proper send-off in their last home match of the season in front of the Spurs. And I fully agree with that. I mean, he brought them a European trophy and some decent table placements. So, I don't want to disrespect the guy.
All right, I need to stop. No, but he's also had a nice long run there. It's probably it's time. It's time. All right, I don't want to look at my disgusting team anymore. So why don't you share your team and I can take a look at it.
All right, I'll throw my team up here on the screen. So I've got 15 doublers and my bench boost is also active. So this feels great to look at. Now, some of the picks, are in questionable form. You've mentioned Vicario a number of times here.
Yep.
And make what you will of Brighton, but João Pedro is finally getting consistent minutes. He, got his goal despite missing the pen. So generally feeling kind of like okay with those Brighton guys going into a double. That's fine. The one question mark I have is actually Chalobah, because I think Chalobah has benefited from some injuries in the Chelsea defense, and I think his minutes in this double are probably my biggest concern. And assuming Bruno is fit to play both, Chalobah seems like the one player that I could target for my
like
free transfer.
spot.
So I'm looking at, could move him to Gusto. I do have 0.6 in the bank to work with, so I could go as high as like 5.1, 5.2. So I could actually bench boost with an Arsenal defender just to get ahead of game week 38. But it goes against the principle of what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you might as well just wait and have 2 transfers for 38, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Odds are, like, even Arsenal have a chance of keeping a clean sheet, but it's probably still at best like 40%, right? Like,
this is our time. Game week 37 is our time for people who just jettisoned the Arsenal defenders, and by God, we deserve it. Okay,
exactly. Get your moment.
But I feel like I want to kind of be a little proactive. I mean, do you see any other players here that you think should be shuttled out for another?
No, I mean, we have a very similar front line. I've got Jackson over Pedro. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, I mean, it's like it feels boring to just move defenders around, shuffle them around. But I think, I mean, you kind of pre-baked your transfers, right, with the -8 that you took this week. You sort of you got in all the kind of people that you'd want. I mean, Vicario, Petrovic. I mean, I think you're pretty much. I mean, you're right. Chalobah would be the one. It'd be fun to find someone in that range. I mean, it's just the question everybody's asking, which is, can I find a defender, right? Because you've got 3 Man City, so that eliminates them, right? Can I find a defender that's worth owning? I mean, you already actually even have Dallo, right? And so I guess the only possible option, even though it's kind of boring, would be like a Dan Burn, right?
Yeah. And it would be good coverage, I think.
That's true.
Because there will be a lot of people rolling with Dubravka even on a single game week. Just
and there are a lot of Dan Burn owners out there too, right? He's a pretty highly owned player, and I don't hate that move
either. So I like it. I'm excited to see how Bruno, how his fitness turns out, and find some Chelsea fans out there who have a better bead on what the defensive rotation might look like.
The Porro thing is funny, right? We both have Porro, and I it's something I want to think about next season, which is those like this thing that we all do when we like set our teams when there's like mass wildcard moments, and it's like we all kind of bring in Porro, and then it's like we all kind of know like that their defense is terrible, right? It's like it's a well-known thing, and so it's so hard to resist these players. Wouldn't we have all been? I mean, of course, in hindsight, it makes sense, but like you could just feel the zero, like a 3.9 million player doesn't even start, and you'd be better off, right? Because you could spend that money around the rest of your
hate flow
squad.
Through you, Josh.
I know. I'm feeling it tonight. I am feeling it.
Yeah,
tonight.
I think Porro was still a decent pick. He's got enough set piece threat, and there's always the chance. We're risk takers. We're gamblers, as you were saying, Josh. And I think Porro had enough upside that it was worth a gamble, worth a punt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like it was he was a widely picked player for a reason, and maybe I'm being a little too hindsight biased here, but I just think in general we are really not thinking enough about how few clean sheets are being kept among most of the Premier League right now, right? Arsenal, Man City, top-notch defenses, right? Even Man City concede in like practically every single match, right? It's
but isn't the counter argument there that you have to get the defenders who have attacking potential, and those are the ones that often have the premium as far as fantasy.
Well, how much attacking potential do they have? I mean, Porro is, like hasn't shown much of that at all, right? In the last like 20 weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's been a lightning in a bottle season. You look at Andy Robertson's got like 2 and 2. Guardiol's doing what he's doing. There was that stretch where Gabriel could not stop scoring.
Yeah.
And honestly, Pedro Porro had that stretch as well. But it's just like farther away in time.
It's like I want to get back to like like kind of traditional principles too. And maybe there's just like something to be said for just like pick 2 defenders, one from like Arsenal and Man City, or like if they turn out to be next year the two best teams, which I assume they will be. Am I blurry on your screen as well, or is it just on?
I think your camera's just kind of a little out of. It will come back into focus.
I'll come back into focus.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
There's those.
These autofocus cameras can be maddening sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's
so
not
I
you,
think.
though.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that. Where was I going with this? Oh, right. Just basically like two top defenders from like the best defensive teams, whoever they end up being next year, right? Again, we're planting we're pickling, we're putting our cucumbers in the jar, Brandon, for next year. Yeah, so we're cuking it up. Okay, yeah, we're doomsday prepping. No, see, why do you go doomsday? You're always going doomsday.
It's funny. It's just funny to me. I don't know.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I moved out of New York, out of the blast zone or whatever. You know, I don't enjoy it. You know, I don't enjoy doomsday talk, and maybe it's because I'm a father of a young child or something. But we're just going back to humbleness, right? Pickling, right? Sensible,
yes.
You know, use every vegetable, make it last, you know? Mm-hmm. So we put these morsels of good FPL play. Set your team by the deadline. Set that bus team, right? I've gotten away from that a little bit.
It's the basic principle. Yeah, absolutely.
It's the basic principle. We can't, bus team is a hashtag, you know, trademark always. We should have trademarked that, shouldn't we have? You know, it's really, it's escaped us now. You know,
Peter Drury was talking about bus teams on the commentary the other day.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not serious. No. But
we would have really made it if that were 100%. The case, but yeah, that's true. All right. Well, anyway, let's move on to a couple of quick questions here, Brandon, before we close things out. Shiv asked about perfect free hit team for the week. Now, I don't want to go through everything here, but I would say I would try to get 3 Man City. I would try to get. I would probably try to get 3. Yeah, there's no probably about it. I would have 3 Man City and 3 Newcastle. Okay. Yep. And then from there, I would probably have 2 Chelsea. And then I think you can kind of mix and match a little bit from there. I mean, I think if I'm on a free hit, I know you mentioned Gabriel before, but I would probably any single game weekers, I think I would bench. I think I would still try to field 11 double game weekers. I
agree with you totally, because you don't to use chip. I don't know. I just feel like compelled. I don't know if this is too chip theory, but I want to just maximize the potential power of that chip. Yeah, and the only real power we have is minutes that our assets will play. Yeah. That's the only thing you have like hoping more for those, control over. Mm-hmm.
And hoping for those like massive, like above expectation, right. You know, huge 20 point, you know, plus returns. So yeah, I think that's really where I would look. I think if I were looking at, I mean, yeah, like you made a little bit of a case for João Pedro. I think I probably honestly would have Nicholas Jackson though, given his form at the moment.
I think so. I would too, for sure.
Yeah. So you know, and I think the Forest match in particular, I could see that being like a match with more than I could see 4 more goals in that match. Not necessarily all from Chelsea's side, but I could just see that being a pretty high scoring kind of loose. Those are 2 teams that don't. Well, again, and now I'm like repeating myself from the start of the pod, but I do think that. I think the Forest might feel a little looser in this match now. Like I think they got their big 3 points, right? And so now I think they're probably, let me just take a quick peek at the table while we're talking here, because I am curious.
Give us the spread here, Josh.
Where things stand. Yeah. So we have, and they've all played 36. So so Brentford is now, I think, officially fine. They're well fine. They're 10 clear of Luton, who's in 18th place. So the situation now basically is that Burnley and Sheffield are down. Burnley are not literally down, but they effectively are, right? Forest would have to get 0. I mean, I guess it's not over because Forest
they're basically in the same situation as Luton Town are. Burnley is
a little bit. I mean, they have a couple more. Luton Town have a couple more points though, at least, right? So like if Luton win their next match. And Forest lose, and they're both on 29 going into 38, right? So that's pretty tight. Whereas Burnley could win their next match, and then then they'd be on because their goal difference is so inferior to Forest that even if they won, there's almost no chance unless they won 20-0 or something like that. So yeah, Luton basically need to win this weekend and hope that Forest lose. So I'm glad I looked at this actually, because Forest really do need to try to find a way to win this match, right? So maybe that makes it a slightly more low scoring match, right? Like I'm not sure that like a wide open match helps them, right? It's like maybe they just try to 1-0 their way to victory if that's a possibility, and if they're able to keep it tight the first half of the match or something like that. So maybe that makes someone like Palmer slightly less appealing, just because Forest have an incentive to. Honestly, they have a real incentive just to get a point out of this match too. Even just getting a point really helps them a lot going into 38.
It does. Yeah, I take that logic. Are Forest capable of sort of like managing their style in such a way that I'm less convinced by? But strategically, you're correct.
And let's see. And Luton have West Ham and Fulham for their final two matches. Not terrible matches, all things considered. No. Pretty good time to play West Ham. And then they host Fulham for 38. And Fulham will really have absolutely nothing to play for.
Beach Boys.
Right? So, yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. So it could be interesting. I hope we have a game week 38. I mean, it should come to pass, Brandon, that we have a title decider and a relegation decider in the same weekend.
I think, there will be stakes. There will definitely be stakes for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We need Arsenal to really win that Man United match to keep things super, super spicy.
Yep.
All right. So let's see.
Any other questions?
Yeah, two last questions. One's from Lucas. He asked about Richarlison for the double. He says, I already know Brandon's answer, so this one's for Josh. So your well-known hatred of Richarlison extends.
I will give him credit. He changed the game for Spurs when he came on. True. I see no world in which Ange does not start Richarlison at least against Burnley.
I agree. Yeah. I think that Richarlison had he could have had a brace, and he could have had 2 goals and a brace in today's match, which would have been or 2 goals and a brace, 2 goals, a brace and an assist in today's match.
Is there I think this only works if you have Richarlison in place of Son. Is that feels like a good differential, particularly if you're like looking at your mini league and you need to be slightly different. Yeah. I do like that as a move.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I certainly wouldn't move Son to Richarlison. Are there people out there who don't have Son? I guess that's the question, right? I mean, maybe someone didn't have him or maybe they dropped him between 35 and 36. Is there someone out there who would go back to maybe to get KDB? It's
a Shiv free hit sort of a question. Like Richarlison seems like a fun free hit guy.
That is a great answer. There you go. That's the scenario where Richarlison makes sense. Do you say scenario or scenario?
I say it however Busta Rhymes says it in that. What's the scenario?
What's the scenario? Yeah. So, and then Boston Prof had a question about left field defender picks with upside. Yes. I mean, I think we kind of got into that already. And the answer is there aren't many. I don't really trust the fullbacks on Newcastle. I think that's right, because in theory, Burn is not a super exciting player now that he's playing as a center back.
Yeah. He's still he is hulking. When you just looked at how much larger he was than everybody in that Sheffield United match, it's intimidating.
Livramento is $4 million, and if you think that Trippier will not be available for the next 2 matches, which is very likely, he's a really decent replacement.
I'm getting an itch suddenly for Livramento for my Chalobah replacement.
Yeah, frees up a little extra money too for 38. So I actually think that's a reasonable punt. I think there's an extremely good chance that he starts. You could maybe see Trippier starting 38. So if that was a worry, and in 38, I think they're away to Brentford, so not a bad match, really, honestly. For Newcastle in 38. All right, well, that is the pod. I know I came in a little spicy, but I was trying to keep it positive here, Brandon, as we go down the stretch here. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with a Patreon pod. We'll have Man United news and maybe some other updates, and a couple other players will probably pull their Achilles in the next couple of days. So we'll cover that as it happens. Brennan, thank you to everyone who supports the podcast on Patreon. Very sincerely, thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon. Really, it's the beating heart that keeps the Always Cheating podcast going.
It is.
And Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, and keeping our arteries free of clogs are our producer patrons: Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wagner, Lodall, Nick Wright, Lazarus Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Wings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Vulgar, Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislov, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Frode Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Gareth H., Rune Sandberg, Brian Clark, and James Murray Wood. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@alwayscheating, to watch this episode in video format, and follow us wherever else you choose to follow things. We'll see you there.
We'll see you there. Exactly. So thanks, everyone. Good luck in Game Week 37. And whether you're having a great season or not, enjoy the matches, because we're about to be away from the Premier League for 3 months. And you will miss it, even when you feel like you're sick of it. By the time early July rolls around, I am very much itching for games again. So even with Euro Cup and in Copa America in the Americas this summer too, Brandon. I think
Still a lot of football.
Still a lot of football, but it's scattered. The stakes are different. So, all right. Well, thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.